Male fertility represents an often overlooked yet critical component of the reproductive health journey. Our next guest, Matt Alley, is transforming this space as Chief Operating Officer of Posterity Health, a pioneering virtual-first center of excellence dedicated to male fertility. With extensive operational leadership experience at Amazon, Alto Pharmacy, and HelloFresh, Matt brings a patient-centered approach to this underserved healthcare sector. Drawing from his own fertility journey, Matt is passionate about improving outcomes for couples through early male intervention, which can increase IVF success rates by over 2x. Join us as Matt shares how Posterity Health's innovative model combines reproductive urologists and advanced practice providers to deliver specialized care nationwide, challenging traditional fertility paradigms, and pioneering the next wave of reproductive health care. Let's go.
Welcome to Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli, where we highlight and speak with the innovators, the game changers, and the pioneers who are deeply passionate and relentless in solving the problems our world is facing today. This is your opportunity to connect with and learn from these leaders and to support them on their mission. Perhaps they will soon be hearing your story as well. This is Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. I look forward to having you on this journey with us. Hi, Matt. A big welcome to our podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me. Excited for this.
Well, given your extensive experience driving operational excellence with high-growth health tech companies and your passion for developing a unique advanced practice provider program that maximizes patient care efficiency with your current company, I'm excited to have this conversation today. But before we dive in, a bit of housekeeping. While listening to any of our episodes, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you will automatically receive episode updates in your podcast player. Simply search Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And lastly, please visit the bottom of the episode notes to connect with me on LinkedIn and X in order to further the conversations occurring on this podcast. All right, Matt, it's almost time for our community to learn how you and the Posterity Health team are pioneering male reproductive health care as the first virtual-first center of excellence dedicated to male fertility. But first, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to others who are passionate about reimagining the health of our world?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would say is focus on the patient and the outcome of the patient. I think Posterity Health, we've built our culture around the male and built our culture around what they're going through on a day-to-day basis as they go through their fertility journey. So I would say really focus and be dedicated to your patient, and a lot of everything else will build itself around it. The product, the system you use, all of those things that are critical to running a business are built around the patient. So stay focused on the patient.
At a higher level, Matt, for some folks that maybe their product doesn't serve a patient per se, would you say focus on the end user? Would that also be a way to say it as well?
Yeah, we say patients, obviously, but end user, customer. I'm an ex-Amazonian, and we were always focused on that. It was ingrained in us as deep as it possibly could be. So everywhere I've been, every stop I've been at, that's my advice. Focus on the patient, focus on the end user, the customer, as much as you possibly can.
I love it. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, Matt, you know as well as I do, we've been doing this startup thing in health tech for a while. It doesn't matter what the hell we think. It doesn't matter what we think works or doesn't work. At the end of the day, it's the end user that matters most. So get out there, get out of the glass tower, the ivory tower, if you will, get on the street, get in front of those patients, get in front of those end users. I absolutely love it. And Matt, I know we're going to talk about those patients. We're going to talk about those end users, the folks that you're serving across this nation with Posterity Health. Now is the time. What a great endeavor you and the team are up to at Posterity Health. I know we're going to discuss much, much more regarding all the wonderful things happening in your camp after we get back from thanking our community champion sponsor.
Healthcare faces a paradox that echoes through generations. While the current practices that help heal patients today are vital, it is crucial to evaluate them through an environmental lens. OSHA's Responsible for Tomorrow initiative is a collection of interviews featuring influential thought leaders and industry experts like you who share their sustainability strategies, insights, and provide valuable perspectives from diverse industries to inspire innovation within the healthcare sector. OSHA invites you to join this journey. Want to share your sustainability story? OSHA is actively looking for partners to highlight the important and inspiring work being done around the globe. Check out OSHA's Responsible for Tomorrow initiative and series at OSHA.com. That's OSSUR.com. Or visit the episode notes and click on their link. Together, and with OSHA helping lead the way, let's all be responsible for tomorrow.
All right, we are back with Matt Alley, COO at Posterity Health. Matt, thank you so much. Focusing on the patient, focusing on those end users. Sounds like that is mission critical at Posterity Health. Of course, Matt, we're going to discuss who Posterity Health is and where you see the organization going, not just the organization, but also the industry writ large. What an incredible time to think about the fertility journey for males. What a untapped space that we haven't seen many innovators go to. So we're going to discuss how it all came to be in the first place, how you joined up with the Posterity Health team. And then, of course, before we get you out of here, we got to ask how we can be helping you and the team out as well. But first, Matt, take us back a bit. Give us a little bit of that journey. How did Posterity Health even come into focus for you? Give us a little bit of your journey leading up to today.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the nuts and bolts of my career started at Amazon as an operator. I was running buildings across the country, managing teams all the way from 250 people to my last stop in Detroit. I had a team of 6,000. So really deep in Amazon operations, kind of a 101 on people management. And that journey led me to Silicon Valley, where I was with two health tech startups, one called Alto Pharmacy and then one called TruePill. Really wanted to dive into the startup space. My dad was a founder. My grandfather was a founder in the Denver area, and found this ideal situation to go really jump into the startup space at Alto, and then ended up at TruePill. Left TruePill to go run ops strategy at HelloFresh, and had an eye on Posterity Health for a while. We started 3 years ago. Our co-founders, Pam and Barrett, founded it 3 years ago. Barrett's a reproductive urologist. I've known Barrett for a while, met him at a startup event, and then grew up with his kids. He's a very well-known reproductive urologist in the area. I was a male fertility patient myself at one point, was azoospermic when I took a semen analysis in 2020, coming off of 4.5 years at Amazon, walking on concrete all day, and knew about what they were doing, super passionate about what they were building. Obviously, ended up joining the team after I had a daughter. So got my issues fixed in a very easy, very efficient manner, and was able to have a child with number 2 on the way here in April. So very passionate about what we're doing and very passionate about the patient that we serve. And it's also a personal journey guiding these men through this fertility journey. And it's really the next wave, the pioneer of fertility is the male side. So excited what we're working on.
Matt, what an incredible story. And thank you for setting the stage. Let's go back on that a little bit of what you just shared with the audience. Let's talk about those moments with Barry. I mentioned you guys have a long-standing relationship. When he approached you, was this an idea? Was it already going? You don't hear about a lot of companies serving this space. What were those first initial conversations like with you and the team?
Yeah, really interesting. So I actually, when I sat down with Pam for the first time, we met through a mutual connection. My information was sent to Pam. Pam and I spent some time together, who's Barrett's wife, also the co-founder. Sat down and told my journey. That's where it started, told my fertility journey. When I was at Alto, our main client was Progeny, which is a fertility benefit manager, the biggest in the United States. And we were their pharmacy and fulfillment for their female patients, and got to see firsthand the female journey and how brutal that is from a hormone perspective and what they're taking from a pharmacy perspective. So really was ingrained in that early on at my time at Alto, helped onboard Progeny, got to see it and took a semen analysis. That's actually what led me to take a semen analysis back in 2020. Took a legacy test. Shout out to Legacy. Took a legacy test in 2020. And that's what, long story short, led me eventually to keep an eye on Posterity Health and what they were doing. But was sitting on the sidelines watching what they were building kind of very early on. Obviously, we're a Denver-based startup, and I'm very passionate about what we're doing in Denver. And so was on the sidelines, outside looking in, and then ended up meeting Pam, telling my journey, telling her about my background. And we figured out how to make it work on bringing me on board, and couldn't be more excited for what we're doing and what we're building.
So exciting. And for Pam and Barrett, the founders, Matt, let's talk about that before we dive into a little current state on who exactly Posterity Health is. What were some of the aha moments for them? What were they seeing in the marketplace? Or more importantly, what were they not seeing where they're like, you know what, let's go ahead and launch this company? Because you know as well as I do, you've been doing this for quite some time with some amazing names in the health tech space, from TruePill to Alto and others. What were they seeing that was not in the marketplace that said, let's go ahead and build this company?
Yeah, it's a COVID story. You know, Barrett was, like I said, a really well-known reproductive urologist in the United States. He was 100% obviously practicing in person before COVID. COVID kind of shook that. Pam was working in private equity for a long time, and particularly in the healthcare space, was focused on digitizing a lot of the companies that were in her private equity portfolio when COVID hit. And so Barrett, as he was practicing, started to do a lot of telehealth, started to see patients all across the country. And so the aha moment was just this need, this drastic need, and a little background on what that need means. There's anywhere between 200 and 250 practicing reproductive urologists in the United States. So it's a very scarce resource. And so Barrett was essentially taking telehealth and amplify his ability to be able to see men via telehealth. And that's where it really started to take off for him. And Pam and Barrett then sat down, brought a couple people in, a couple of our first few hires, and saw the opportunity, the writing on the wall that the shift in fertility was going to go to the male side.
Well, let's talk about that opportunity that they saw. They, of course, then launched a company called Posterity Health. So let's go there, Matt. Who is Posterity Health?
Posterity Health is transforming male fertility by building awareness, education, treatment for men, providing world-class care through our 7 reproductive urologists across the United States. We're a digital-first approach. We do about 80% telehealth with the focus in what we're about to release outcome data that shows that we can improve outcomes for fertility by 2.3x. So essentially every dollar that's spent on IVF, we can improve that by 2.3x just by treating the male. So we focus on better results for the couple, better results for payers, and ultimately better results for the men that walk through our door.
You know, let's talk a little bit of the social dynamics here a bit, right? You think about the IVF journey, you think about the reproductive journey, nowhere typically do we say, oh, we got to get the male involved besides obviously the donation thereof. But in regards to actual treatment and thinking through the journey, this seems like a relatively new arena, or at least a new discussion that maybe we might be having out there in the healthcare industry. What has this been like contextually and subjectively, and with these males, with these patients, with the end consumer, and then of course the providers as well? What has it been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a super nascent space. To your point, I think the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life was telling my wife that I was azospermic, right? That's a very difficult kind of degrading thing. I know exactly what it's from now, and a lot of it just had to do with lifestyle. I'd mentioned I'd come off from 4.5 years at Amazon, working nights, working 60, 80-hour weeks, trying to take best care of myself that I could. On the surface, nothing seemed wrong. I felt great, but took a semen analysis, which is truly a biohack in a lot of different ways to tell how men's health is. And I think that that's the unlock. That's the wedge in the arena that's shifting, is starting with that hack that is a semen analysis. And that's where a lot of our men start as they come through our digital front door, is to take a semen analysis. But the market is fascinating because IVF, you know, in the last 15 to 20 years has shifted so much. And we feel this tidal wave that's really happening right now. That's the focus on male reproductive care and men's health. And we think we're ready to catch that wave as best as we possibly can. And the interesting part, as I'd mentioned, is there's 250 practicing reproductive urologists. Most of them are in an academic center. So they're extremely busy, 6 months backed up. Or if it's a reproductive urologist in a urology clinic, they're doing about 60% urology work and a smaller portion reproductive urology. So we're taking that scarce resource, pulling them out of an academic center, pulling them out of a urology clinic, and really highlighting them, giving them the ability to amplify their capabilities to see men in the masses. But that's probably the craziest part about the industry, is just how scarce that resource is. If you think about it on the female side, there's anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 reproductive endocrinologists focus on IVF. And so we have this uphill battle that we have to, one, educate the market, right, and build that awareness, not only with our brand, but on male reproductive care that has some sensitivity to it in the market. And then B, there's this scarce resource that we have to take and we have to amplify.
And in regards to building that brand awareness, where do you go and do that, man? I'm sure you guys are, A/B testing. Yeah. You guys are trying things. That's what you do as a startup, right? Try some things that work, kill it fast. If not, scale it up, right? I know how the startup world works, but that's got to be an interesting exercise thereof. Just what is that messaging? How do you go and find that ideal customer profile, et cetera? What has that been like as well, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's been ultimately a challenge in a lot of different ways. It's probably one of the biggest challenges we deal with on a day-to-day basis because, the female side is much more proactive in their health. So there's the balance, right? We're trying to market to the female, educate them to say, hey, before you start this very expensive, brutal treatment plan, can be brutal, but it's sometimes, in these reproductive endocrinologists are incredible, super well trained, but we're trying to educate them to say, hey, the semen analysis could be the easiest way to check, as a couple, how you're doing as it becomes to your reproductive health. And then the other side is we're trying to market to men just to educate them because it's such a nascent new thing that's being discussed. And so we're trying to find that balance. I think one of the interesting ones we're really starting to play around with and talk about is, if you talk about the market and where it's, I guess, the worst is really in former athletes, ex-military environments that are high stress, any job like that. that's where it's really impactful to treat those men. And so we're starting to do some direct to consumer influencer marketing in the athlete space, things like that. So that's kind of where we're playing around, but it's a unique challenge. There's not a lot of opportunity that I've seen in my past where you're really changing an entire market. And that's particularly what we're talking about, is really shifting the mindset to focus on the male. So that's definitely a big challenge. And where do we go? There's a lot of different directions where we're going to go, but we're going to iterate as we raise more money and continue to try to test what's going to work the best.
The absolute epitome of being a startup. I absolutely love it, Matt. I love
exactly.
it. Let's go back to that kind of patient journey, if you will. You did mention kind of that digital front door, kind of those first steps in and through it is that semen analysis. What else does this look like for a patient going through the Posterity Health journey? What's that journey look like?
Like I said, as you mentioned, digital first, right? So you can self-schedule, go on our website, self-schedule there, call us, contact us, and get on the schedule. But it's essentially self-scheduling all the way through. That patient's going to see either one of our APPs, advanced practitioners, or they're going to see one of our physicians. What's interesting about the model is we're regionally based. So if the male comes through Colorado, they're going to see Barrett, and then they're going to continue to see Dr. Barrett every single time they go, which is unique in the telehealth world to have that continuity of care. So they're going to continue to see Barrett. The treatment is a little bit different for men, and I'm not clinical, so I won't dive into a ton of the details, but essentially what that would look like is you might start with a semen analysis. That semen analysis indicates that there's a potential issue. We could then do a blood test. That blood test would also then indicate a few more issues and kind of go one layer deeper. If we find even more issues, we'll then bring that patient in person, and that person can do a physical exam. And if that physical exam leads to a few more things, there could be a procedure that's done that helps and fix the issues. The other testing that we've been doing in the D2C side, I'll give you an example, is like vasectomy reversals. A lot of men don't know that you can reverse a vasectomy and have success. And so in the last year, that's been probably the fastest growing element of our business, is just educating the male to say, this reversal is actually very successful. And we can do that and really have a lot of success around getting everything cranked back up if you want to conceive another child. So that's kind of the journey that male would go through at the end. That kind of explains the end could be, let's call it a vasectomy reversal or something along those lines to treat the male. Or it could be a drug that they're prescribed by one of our physicians that helps kickstart the system.
Now, let's also talk about the providers that are involved. You mentioned you guys leverage APPs. I absolutely love that. And of course, the providers themselves. What has it been like for them? Obviously, this is a whole new gateway, if you will, to having patients become part of their panel, et cetera. What's the response been by those kind of providers, APPs in that community?
Yeah, super interesting, right? If you think about it from a resource perspective, if you think about the reproductive urologist already being a scarce resource, there's not a lot of APPs out there that are trained in male fertility. So we follow AUA guidelines, which is the association. Our physicians do an incredible job onboarding these APPs, making them truly an extension. And I think that that's probably the most unique part of our model, is that APPs, just like one of our physicians, is going to be, for the most part, the same APP you're going to continue to see, whether you're doing hormone management or the full fertility treatment. But the biggest challenge is that training element and making sure that in the future, as we grow, we think 5-10 years down the road, there has to be some sort of market for training these APPs in a specialty that is reproductive urology. So that's probably the most interesting part. But when they come in, I think, and I say this all the time to our team, what we're doing is inevitable. If we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. It's too big of an opportunity, too big of a market, and it's too big of a shift we have to make as it pertains to reproductive health. And so a lot of our APPs, they've either worked in hormone management previously, or they're used to having some sort of prescribing element to their business just so they can read a blood test and do things like that. I think they see what we're doing and get really excited about it and the mission that we have. And they're truly an extension of our really, really great physicians that we have across the country.
And of course, let's talk about those patients as well. You said you guys are very, very passionate, obsessed with the patient and their journey.
Yeah.
What's the feedback been from these patients as well?
Yeah, I think it's the telehealth thing that is such an advantage for us, and that's shifting. I think men are adapting to this telehealth age really, really well. We have a hormone management business, a low T business. Ours is a little bit different shaped, and the goal is a little bit different than maybe some of the other telehealth low T companies around the country. But for us, the telehealth element makes it an advantage because I think men like that. And then we've got the balance. We're 75-80% telehealth, and then the rest is in person. And I think where the journey has really shown well is this continuity of care. And guys, we have somewhere between 30 to 40% of our men that come in our door haven't seen a doctor since their pediatrician when they were 18. So that continuity of care and that trust they can build with a physician is pretty incredible. And we averaged in 2024 an 82 NPS score. The average in fertility is about a 40. And we think it's that balance that we've found with telehealth. We do a lot of our communication via text message. If you were to ask, obviously I fit in that range of people who are conceiving, but I think most men would rather receive a text than a phone call. And if you were to poll 10 of my friends, they'd probably tell you, Ein would tell you the same. One might say, no, call me, but we're fully digitally enabled in that sense where we can text the patient, they can text us, they can schedule via text. All of those things I think have been great for us to really implement in the last 2 years.
I'm of course nodding over here about text message. Yes, sign me up. I'm in that camp with you, Matt. Yeah, don't call me. I'm not even going to answer. So you might as well just text me because I'm not picking up the phone. So
exactly.
Just text me. We'll get a lot more done that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt, I absolutely love that journey for your patients. Now's the time, right? I mean, these are the realities. You got to meet the consumer, got to meet the patient where they're at, and this is where they are at. So absolutely love that journey you're taking your patients on. Let's grab that crystal ball off the shelf, Matt. Let's talk about a little future state. Of course, this is a new arena that folks like you and leaders like your team are shining a light on, which is awesome. And of course, as you mentioned, it's inevitable. This is going to happen. So of course, there's a lot of runway in front of this space. What are you seeing on the macro over the next couple of years? And of course, where is Posterity Health be in that reality as well?
Yeah, I think 5 years down the road, Posterity Health or not, men need to know and be educated on fertility and what that means. We hope, and the vision that we see is that we become, just like if you got a knee replacement, a doctor has to do that, run down and take a look at the knee and do that pre-authorization with any payer. Our target and our goal is that we become a very similar thing for something like IVF. The male becomes the pre-auth because the male is much easier to treat. So the 5-year target that we have and kind of what we're starting to trend to in 2025 is to get in front of, we're contracted with all the big fertility benefit managers. There's 7 of them that we have contracts with that we work with to be the partner for male fertility. But in future state, I think men need to be educated. They need to know about their fertility journey, their semen analysis. They need to be educated on testosterone, what that does to your body, those type of things. This longevity play that's really big. I think we're going to find ourselves in the next 5 years really being an influence in that because we're so physician-based, medically based, backed, and we're doing a lot of research, collecting a lot of data in that space. So I think 5 years from now, we can take a hold of that and educate men. And number 2 is around IVF. How can we support better outcomes? I'll give you an example that's really come to light in the last couple years is there's this thing called a DNA fragmentation. And Dr. Barrett would tell this story way better than I would, but he had a patient a few weeks ago that came in, they've had multiple miscarriages, which means that that male probably has DNA fragmentation. So for any couples out there that have had issues with miscarriages, this is also an element of that and educating the market on the many elements of what this could look like. But he had this patient, multiple miscarriages, found out it was DNA fragmentation, made a couple lifestyle changes, put that male on Clomid and HCG. And we ring a bell in our office every single time a couple gets pregnant. That bell was rang a couple weeks later when we found out they were pregnant. So I think the 2-part, one, you crystal balls, the education piece, and then how do we support IVF, make IVF have better outcomes, more cost friendly, which we can do on the male side, make it very cost friendly if we find that issue and we can address it pretty easily. So that's where we hope the market goes. And that's where we hope we can be along for the journey for men and really support them through their fertility journey.
And of course, man, that's exciting. I love to hear that. And I love to hear that you guys are ringing the bell in the office. That's phenomenal. They got to celebrate. It's a big deal.
For sure.
And then also too is not even just today, but even of course in the future, but we're living it today. The notion of family has become more and more non-traditional, if you will, right? A man and a woman married, having kids. That's the kind of the traditional route. Are you guys also contemplating what does it look like on non-traditional family planning as well? Whether that be donation, whether that be, LGBTQ plus couples.
Great question.
What does that look like as well for you guys?
Yeah, we support everybody in their journey. That's something we take a lot of pride in, is the untraditional side. We're in the middle of a deal, for an example, for a company that's building direct to donor for couples. And if they start with a semen analysis, that semen analysis comes to us. We help treat the male. And it's a really daunting challenge. It's kind of a pontification on something else, but anywhere between 70 to 75% of the semen analysis that we have in our internal database has some sort of abnormality. And so for somebody that's dealing with a direct to donor or a donor situation in general, there's a high likelihood that there's something that we could tweak with that male to give them the ability to be a donor. So yeah, we are working really hard to insert ourselves in a lot of different ways into the overarching umbrella that is reproductive care and how we support any couple, any partner group that's to build a family. That's what we're here for. And obviously we're focused on the male, but we really want to make sure any couple that's going through their journey, they've got support on that side to build their family.
Absolutely love it, Matt. Thank you for that. And speaking of support, of course, this podcast and the community that tunes in is a very passionate bunch. Love to help our guests out. So got to ask you, hey, what's one problem, need, or question that you and the Posterity Health team have that our community can be helping you with?
That's a really good question, and I appreciate that. You know, we're in the middle of a fundraise. That's always a good place to start. What we're trying to do is change the game. And sometimes changing the game, as we're talking about the direct-to-consumer side, means we need funding. So we're in the middle of the raise. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have more to announce. But anybody out there that's got good advice on raising capital for myself and Pam, we're really targeting that right now. And obviously the other one is anybody out there that's building a digital health company that's really focused on clinical outcomes. Would love to pick your brain. That might be a few steps ahead of us. Saves me some energy. I'm learning the hard way. Would love to learn from anybody out there that's the best at what they're doing and have done this before. Would love to pick your brain.
In order to get a hold of you, Matt, how do they touch basically online, social media handles, websites, contact points online? How do they track you down?
Yeah, LinkedIn's definitely the best. We're active on LinkedIn. So Matt Alley on LinkedIn at Posterity Health. That's definitely the easiest way to find me. LinkedIn is a good one. I'm not on any other social media. So that's probably not only the best one, but the only one.
I love it. And for our listening community, just simply scroll on down in your favorite podcast player where you're accessing this episode. There will be those contact points for Matt and the Posterity Health team. Of course, you can head over to our free global online community over at passionatepioneers.com. There will be a post for Matt's episode where you can also leave comments, feedback, suggestions, or otherwise, and grab those contact points online, again, over at passionatepioneers.com. Matt, thank you so much for spending some time with us. But of course, before we get you out of here, we do have one more piece for you. It's a fill in the blank. I'm a passionate pioneer because
I love building the next generation of reproductive care.
I love it. Matt, you and the team are doing exceptional work. The time is now. We heard that crystal clear through this conversation. It is inevitable, and it looks like Posterity Health is well on its way in solving this huge need out in our communities and beyond. So, Matt, thank you for taking time to be with our community today on the podcast. Always great to have passionate, fired up leaders just like yourself really pushing the ball forward on health and care for so many of us across the country. But for now, Matt, thanks again for being with us today.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate the time. This was great.
Thank you for joining us today on Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. We'd love to hear your feedback about the podcast so we can continue to improve this community and to further support the pioneers being featured. Lastly, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and invite your friends and colleagues to join us. This is Passionate Pioneers with Mike Biselli. I look forward to having you back with us during our next episode.